I'm Maica reporting for Kids First, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with the director of the new Kung Fu film movie, The Paper Tigers, Bao Tran, and the producer, Alain Duong. Mr. Tran and Mr. Duong are not new to the business of filmmaking. Mr. Tran directed the short films Black Coffee, Bookie, and Carmen's Virtue, and also has acted in them. Mr. Duong produced Black Thread and Number 5. They were both also credited for working on The Challenger. Now we're going to speak about their new thrilling action comedy, The Paper Tigers. Hi, Mr. Tran and Mr. Duong. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Hi, Micah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Oh, see how we said that in sync?
Jinx.
This is how it works.
Well, let's get just right started into it. And this question's for Mr. Tran. This is your debut directing a feature film. How did your previous work directing short films prepare you for this movie?
Oh, wow. Short films are definitely kind of its own thing. Typically it's about 5 to 10 or 15 minutes, and a feature film is about 100 minutes. So there's quite a bit of things to kind of learn. You kind of have if you're a painter, you have a bigger canvas, you have a lot more paintbrushes that you can use. So it's really how you can learn how to put it all together. But I think the lessons you learn from telling a short story is very very fundamental to telling a long story, and which is don't bore the audience. So just make sure the audience can stay along and be interested, because sometimes a short film can feel very long, and sometimes a feature length film can go by really quick.
Well, I was definitely interested the entire time, so everyone did a great job doing that. And also for Mr. Tran, you're credited for writing the screenplay for The Paper Tigers. What were the challenges in directing the film that you also wrote?
Wow. Well, also the challenge would be working with the actors, because they're like little stray cats. They have their own ideas and they want to do other things than what was written on the page, but which is great. We love having the actors be creative and do improvisation and ad-libbing their lines in addition to what was written. So it was always fun to have creative people in the same room and coming up with different ideas and bouncing off each other and making it better. So I think the challenge is just making sure that we were all kind of making sure we're making the same movie and telling the same story. But other than that, it was great to have the actors have at it.
Oh yeah, that sounds great. And while that may be a challenge, it sounds like it could also make it easier in a sense.
Certainly makes who would it be easier? Maybe it makes the editor an easier job of choosing better takes, but it's a lot more footage that ends up getting shot. But they get to choose from a lot of good things.
Well, that's great to hear. And the acting is so good and incredibly authentic to the story. So, Mr. Tran, how active were you in selecting the cast that brings so much life to this movie?
Yeah, the actors are really fun to watch, and that's great to hear. They came on at different stages. The Yuan, who plays Hing, was a good friend of our producer, so we had reached out with him in mind to play the part. Matthew Page, who plays Carter, also a friend of a friend, and we had reached out and had a lot of interest in having him in the film. The other actors we had either worked with before, or we had to go through casting, which is kind of going through the whole audition process with our casting director, receiving audition tapes and seeing how they kind of play off each other and together as well. And you have to kind of test and see how they all look and look together and play together. And so it's a lot of process to auditioning the actors.
Oh yeah, it sounds like a long process, but I think the actors were definitely chosen correctly. For Mr. Duong, this film has a lot of aspects that make it so interesting and unique. What specifically drew you to working on this project?
Yeah, I mean, what drew me was that, Bao wrote the script probably 10 years ago. And for myself being a former martial artist, and then he pitched me the script when my wife was pregnant. And so I was actually about to become a father. And so, a lot of things were kind of matching up, aligning with, the story. And there was just so many aspects of the story that I connected with. And then, so that kind of made it personal for me when I hopped on to work on the film.
Oh yeah, that must have made it really make you emotionally attached to this movie as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also for Mr. Duong, the role of producer mostly happens off-set, but how much time did you spend on set during production? And what were your favorite things about being there?
Favorite things. It so I was definitely on set for probably 90% of the time, and just kind of more like behind the scenes, like I wanted to make sure that everyone was happy, working safely, everyone was fed, and then putting out little fires, like either running out of money or looking for like props, like in the kung fu school we were trying to look for like certain swords and stuff like that, so I would drive out and go find swords in the middle of town. So it was pretty exciting, and like one of my favorite parts of being on set was actually seeing all the actors kind of get along and kind of recite all of the lines from the script that we've known for about 10 years now. So
well, I think that everything that you just said that you contributed to the movie made it a lot better.
Thanks. Thank you.
And
right, Bao? Come on.
Hey, I agree. When Maica says I agree.
Well, it's great that you guys agree. I think you guys have a really great relationship that must have made it easier to work. And this, for Mr. Tran, the stunts in this film are very realistic. How'd you go about directing this to make sure the stunts were believable?
Well, that's a lot of credit to our action director, who is Ken Kittigwa, who's also in the film. But we have an action team that specializes in designing the action, figuring out the choreography, figuring out the angles and shots, but also working with the actors in coaching them through the movements and the choreography and making sure that it makes sense for them. Because sometimes some actors have a different feeling or they move differently, and you just have to start adjusting to make sure it fits the character. So that whole process is it's definitely a testament to the action team, who had to go through that whole process, because as you see, there's quite a bit of action and quite a lot of bit of action sequence and fight sequences throughout the film. So that's a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, a lot of rehearsal, and a lot of leadership that required to kind of lead all these actors into one place and then kind of create this one dance, because the fight scene is really, it looks like people are fighting and there's a lot of chaos, but in reality it is a very controlled dance in which they have to kind of coordinate with each other, with your dance partner, and move in the right way, and then be led by the other partner, or sometimes you lead the partner. So it's a very, very, very interesting artistic process to follow through.
Well, the stunt coordinators and action coordinators had me actually worried during some of the scenes when they were fighting and everything. So kudos to them and you guys as well.
Thank you.
That's great to hear. That's the job well done then. It worked.
Yes, it definitely did. And Mr. Tran, I've read that this movie, and just like Mr. Duong just said, it took about 9 years or 10 years. Were there times that you felt like giving up on the project?
There are times that, and obviously 10 years is a very long time, maybe, it's a whole decade, that's quite a bit of a stretch of time. I think what's hardest is not necessarily wanting to quit the project, but just figuring out when is the right time to kind of move forward and to sometimes adjust. Maybe you don't have as much money as you think you need for the movie, or maybe you don't have as much time as you think you need for the movie. But sometimes if it means to progress forward or make some movement and actually get closer to making the film done, you have to make certain sacrifices. So I think that's the hardest part in knowing like when to basically stand your ground, but also when to kind of bend and be flexible to the circumstances, because life is not always fair, and sometimes you don't always get the things that you need or that you passionately believe you need to be able to make the film, and you have to basically adjust for that.
I'm really glad you stuck with the project and released it when you did, because I'm so glad I got to watch it. It was very interesting, and you guys did an amazing job with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing that makes it all worth it.
Oh, that's great. And Mr. Duong, what was your reaction to seeing everything pieced together into the final film for the first time?
It was a super special moment. I mean, I think, once it was together, to see that long journey that, we went through together, to finally have everything pieced together, I think, you know, for us, we actually watched the movie with an audience for the first time 3 weeks ago in a theater. And so that was a super special moment for us. And so it was, it made everything well worth it.
Yeah, I wish I could have seen it in the theater, but I think watching it at home and like your own type of comfort even made it even more enjoyable as well. And the final question for Mr. Duong, The Paper Tigers has a lot of compelling messages. What do you hope audiences will take away from watching this film?
Well, I mean, like, I think one of my favorite scenes was, you know, like a phone call to from a father to his son, you know, talking about how, you know, if you are looking for a fight, you know, that makes you the bully. But essentially, you know, if your back is, you know, against the wall, you know, you're going to have to make your own way and fight through it. And, you know, and I think that speaks to a lot of, you know, what's going on today, that, you know, like we just have to stick to what we believe and fight for what we want.
That's a great message. And I think I agree with you. I think audiences will take that away from watching the movie.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bao Tran and Mr. Alain Duong, for talking with me today about the new film, The Paper Tigers. This movie is out now in theaters and on video on demand. It releases on DVD and Blu-ray June 22nd, 2021. I'm Maica reporting for Kids First, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss my next interview or those of my incredible teammates. See you next time.
See ya. Thank you, Kids First.
If you guys looking for, you know, fourth tiger, I take karate, let me know.